the country, and I always really wanted to make a video about my tips for traveling to China. I just feel like I have some experience that I would like to share with you. My number one is you should go to China. I feel like China might not be as popular tourist destination as some other Asian countries, which is such a shame because China is an amazing, interesting country. It's so big. They literally have everything. They have great big cities, they have nature, mountains, lakes, rivers, beaches, you name it. You have it all in China. Number two, don't be afraid of the language barrier. I feel like many people might think that language barrier is a big issue in China. And sometimes it is, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I feel like China is a country which is constantly developing and changing. I left China 1.5 years ago, and I'm pretty sure that the next time I will go to China, everything will be different because this country just changes so much. So if you've been to China a couple of years ago, or if you heard about someone else who traveled to China, only because 5 years ago you had issues communicating in English, it doesn't mean that you will have issues now. Young people in China are perfectly able to speak English. Young kids learn English in school. A lot is changing. So I don't think that the language barrier is an issue anymore. I do think that if you go to the countryside, obviously you might have issues communicating. Also, especially because everything's written in Chinese. But in the cities, Shanghai, Beijing, I'm pretty sure you won't have any problems at all, or maybe little problems, like problems with taxi drivers, but not if you see anyone young on the street, they will probably speak English. Number three, get yourself Pleco. Pleco is a dictionary for smartphones. It translates from English to Chinese and from Chinese to English. So basically, if you are going somewhere and you don't know the name of the place, or you know the English name, because often in China, some places might have English names and then they have Chinese names that are completely different. Let's say in Shanghai, the biggest attraction is the Bound. If you say the Bound to a taxi driver, they will have no idea what you're talking about. You'll have to look it up on Pleco. And whenever you need something, let's say you are in a restaurant and you want to order dumplings, you just write dumplings on Pleco and you translate it. And also a good idea is to show your phone to whoever you're talking to, because they might not be able to understand if you pronounce the Chinese name. And also Pleco works without internet, so you can just use it all the time. Number four, remember that Google and some of the websites that you usually use, like Facebook, might not work in China. So basically Facebook doesn't work in China. Google works sometimes, but usually it's really slow. You might not be able to Google everything. So remember to do your research before you come to China. But the thing is, I'm not gonna get into legal stuff in this video. All I will tell you is VPN. Everyone has VPN in China. It's very easy. I don't know if it's illegal, but yeah, probably. I used Facebook when I was in China. All my friends used Facebook. Can't really survive without Facebook for a year. Number five, before you come to China, remember to have the address of the place that you're staying at, of your hotel, written down in Chinese. The best idea is probably to just take a picture, not to try to write it by yourself, because then people might not be able to understand it. As I said, taxi drivers usually don't speak English, so if you'll show them the English address or address written down in Latin letters, they'll probably not be able to read it. And also, if you're going sightseeing, you can always ask the hotel staff to write down all the names of the places you're going to in Chinese in case you want to take taxi in the city. Number six, pollution is like weather. So sometimes the pollution in China can be really bad, sometimes it's not that bad at all. So a good thing to have with you is a pollution application. I think it's called China Air Quality. I'll put the name here. And also you can get yourself a mask. They sell masks everywhere in China. Every little shop offers masks, so it's really easy, and also it's a nice souvenir. But yeah, if for example, if you are a runner, if you want to go out for a run, a pollution application is good because you can check if the pollution is bad that day. It's probably not the best idea to go out for a run. Number 7, don't be afraid to eat. At least for me, one of the coolest things in China was trying all kinds of weird and delicious foods. I've really enjoyed trying street food. Street food is really cool. For example, in Europe, we don't really have street food, so I feel like it's a really nice experience to try that. When I was in China, I haven't heard about many people getting sick. I've heard about a lot of people worrying about getting sick. I never got sick, so I obviously cannot promise you that you won't get sick, but yeah. I just feel like missing out on street food is just like missing out a huge part of China, a huge part of Chinese experience. My favorite street foods were grilled tofu and fried rice with vegetables and long white mushrooms, which I always forget the name of, but they're so good. You have to try them if you're in China. In general, when you're in China, just try everything you can. Try dumplings, try noodles, try hot pot. There's so many amazing stuff that you can try in China. Number 8, be careful when you cross the street. The traffic in big Chinese cities is pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. The green light doesn't always mean that you can cross the road. Red lights for the cars doesn't necessarily mean that they will stop. So be really careful, look around before you cross the street. Number 9, go to both Shanghai and Beijing. If you're coming to China for the first time, you'll probably choose one of these two big cities, but I would definitely recommend you to go to both of them. They're nothing alike, so don't think that seeing one big Chinese city is like seeing them all, because that's completely not true. They're so different from each other, different architecture, different vibe, different everything. Also, the transportation in between these two cities is really easy. The flight is only 1 hour and the flights are not very expensive, and also a cool experience would be to take the fast train. There's a fast train which goes pretty much like every hour between Beijing and Shanghai. 1,500 kilometers in between these two cities takes about 5 hours, so it goes pretty fast. And finally, number 10, prepare to feel overwhelmed. When I first arrived in China, I felt very overwhelmed. I did travel before, I've seen many different places, but I feel like nothing can prepare you for China. So to be completely honest, when I first arrived in China, I really didn't like it. I hate it actually. I really didn't. I didn't even like Shanghai, which is crazy because Shanghai is freaking amazing. It's like one of the best cities on earth. I was really jet lagged. I was tired. There were a lot of people on the streets. There are always a lot of people around you in China. That's the thing. It was really warm. I was just overwhelmed. But then after a while, I loved it. Living in China, traveling in China are some of the best experiences of my life, and I would highly recommend everyone to do the same. So that's why I feel like even though if you feel a little overwhelmed, you have a little cultural shock in the beginning, it will get better. China is just an amazing, very interesting country, so I'm sure you will like it after you'll get over your little cultural shock. I hope you liked my video. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask me, comment down below. I would love to answer, and I see you soon. Sometimes it's just so